to the Agorist podcast. I'm Brandon. I've got my great co-host Dag with me. How you doing, Dag?
I'm doing spectacular, dude. How's it going?
Great. We've got very exciting guest, Pat Watson. How you doing, Pat?
I am pumped to be here. Thank you so much for the invite.
Yeah, of course, man. Yeah, so you just got a new dog. We were talking about that a little bit before we started. And I love puppies and dogs. He's like a half lab, half whatever. But he's awesome. He looks like a little hound dog or something, but he's an awesome dog.
Sweet. I'm very excited. It's been a rough week, but we're at day 7 of dog ownership, and I could not be more happy.
Now, this is like a super special dog, though. It's not just any dog, right?
This is not a rescue. I'm sure I just offended a bunch of hippies. This is not a rescue. This is not a Humane Society purchase. I have a friend of mine who I met through listening to the Survival podcast, and his name is Joel, and he runs Fortress Canine, and he is the only affiliate that I have for my website. I'm very, very picky with who I share my alliance or my allegiance to, or what would be the good word for that? Who I give my stamp of approval to and who I want to collaborate with. And I believe in him as a person. I believe in his products of the dog, and I believe in his service of the training. And it's a big deal for me that if I was going to have an affiliate, and if I was going to collaborate with someone and put my stamp on them, I had to believe in their product and probably use their product, which I do now. And his philosophy is really important. A lot of people say, yeah, we live by a philosophy. Okay, what is it? And a lot of people stutter and they're like, well, do a good job. No. So his training philosophy for his dogs is wonderful because he's former military, he's former law enforcement with working dogs. And I love that he doesn't say, well, this is the way we did it in the military, so this is the way we're going to do it now. He's the opposite, which is we did it this way and it was fucking stupid. So I took a look at it and said, how can we fix this? So I like that he's really open-minded. So now I have a new family member down here at my feet, and she's an 8-week-old Dutch Shepherd. She's going to be doing a lot of work. We're going to be very busy, but it's going to be very rewarding.
I'm half jealous that you have a new puppy, and I also do not envy all the work you're about to have to go through.
I'm exhausted, man. It's been a rough week. Good week, but a rough week.
Just potty training.
You drinking on anything tonight, Pat?
I am finishing off my bottle of Screwball peanut butter whiskey. Sounds terrible. But man, I opened that top. Texas Joe gave it to me. He opened the top and he's like, smell this. And I'm like, holy shit. Oh, wait, can we swear here?
Yeah.
Oh, God, sorry. Holy shit. So I took a sip of it and I was like, it'll be mediocre, but man, it's really good. So I have like half of a serving in my cup here that I'm going to try and drink.
Some of the guys in the Dissecting Liberty Discord were recommending that to me. I was looking to try a new whiskey last month, and they recommended that to me, and I was just like, I don't know, that does not sound
sounds terrible.
You're saying it's good.
Sounds terrible, but It's really freaking good.
I actually ended up with it's called Wild Buck. They actually make it in Weeki Wachee in Florida. It's
cool.
Yeah, it's a rye whiskey. I guess they grow their own rye or something like that, but it's not bad. It's the most I've ever spent on a bottle, $60, but it was my birthday, so I'm like, hell, I'm going for it.
Awesome. Well, I love it.
So you have a new book out. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that, and we'll get started.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So this was a long time in the making, and behind the scenes info for the audience would be the hardest thing about writing my book was to stop fucking adding chapters to it and to stop adding things where I'm like, oh, it'd be so cool to tell everybody about this and that and this. And I had to be like, okay, slow down. Book is going to be 1,000 pages at this point. Can't do that. So I tried to be patient with myself and to say what is a good product and what would bring people a lot of value with the things that have to be in it. And if I want, maybe I'll do a volume 2 or a volume 3 later, but what is a really good primer that someone can take and start as their foundation for their skill set for how to make an efficient and effective entry when their resources are limited to, tools you can carry in your pocket or things you can make out of your environment. So that was behind the scenes, the struggle of, I'm going to tell them this and that and this and that. So what we have now is scratching the surface, but I've been writing it for about 2 or 3 years now. It's been a long process. It has weighed upon me heavily. It's been a long, it's taken many, many hours out of my life, and a lot of other parts of my life suffered because of it. But I believed in it, and I hope that it's a good product that a lot of people get value out of. And it is basically about 20-ish chapters. About 10 of them are recognizing patterns and techniques and applying them in the field. And about another 10 chapters are case studies of applying those roughly. So I try to order it on purpose. I try to line it up specifically in certain order to bring people the most amount of value. It covers lockpicking, just a basic technique for how to rake open or pick open a simple lock. I cover a bunch of different bypasses for doors, for padlocks, for chains, for gates, for vehicle entry, for how to break out of handcuffs and flex cuffs and duct tape and things like that. It has been a labor of love for sure.
It's a pretty big book too. It's like 500 pages, right?
Yeah. So my publisher called one day. It was a company that helped me to get published, self-published. So it is self-published and I own all the rights to it. But the person that helped me publish their company, they called and they were like, all right, so we're going to do like a 5-inch by 7-inch book. And it's going to be black and white. And I'm like, whoa. Who gave you that idea? No. As big as you can make it, as big of photos as you can make them, full color. And they were like, ooh, that's going to be expensive. And I was like, well, good, but it's also going to be valuable because the last fucking thing I want is, I don't know if you guys are former military or government, but even if you're not, a lot of big bureaucracies will go, hey, watch this PowerPoint, attend this training. Here's how you defuse a bomb, cut the red wire. Okay, for the rest of your life, here's a packet you can take with you to remember this class. And you look at the packet and it says on one photo, on one PowerPoint slide, it says, don't cut the red wire. And you're looking at the photo and you're like, great, this photo is black and white. How does that help me? So I wanted people to have a product that all the way through the future, they can go, I saw a photo like that in the book. Let me look it up real quick. And they have a valuable piece of content that's not just, I tried to save some money and do black and white. So it's expensive for people to purchase. It's also expensive for the printer to print. So it's not that I think the print version is $50. It's not that I get $49 and the publisher gets $1. It's they take quite a chunk for the printing cost as well. So, but the important thing for me was that it's as valuable as a high level textbook.
It's got to be usable,
Yeah. Otherwise, why buy it?
So what would somebody need these skills for non-nefarious purposes?
It's funny you say that. Short answer or short defense of that would be, if you look up the FBI crime statistics, crimes that include lockpicking as a proponent to the crime are like less than a fraction of a percent. So this is not something that is widely used it's not even lightly used for criminal activity. Why would you want to use it in a positive way? Well, I used to say openly, I've never met someone in my life that wasn't locked out of an obstacle that they had the right to access. Almost everyone in my life that I've ever met, at some point, it's easy to go, I've been locked out of things before. Sure. That I was supposed to be in. I had to go get a key, or I forgot my key at home. I had to go retrieve the key. And one guy I was on a deployment with, he was like, I was in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba for 9 months over there. And one guy was like, I'm not going to take your training. I'm like, fine, you don't have to. I'm like, but you've never been locked out of anything ever? And he goes, I've never been locked out of anything ever. I'm like, well, first of all, you're probably full of shit. But second of all, good. I'm not gonna steal your money and force you to take my class that I'm teaching here. So less than a week later, he's locked out of his cabin or his little hooch that we lived in. And he's like, can you help me? I'm like, wow, this must be so rare for you. You've never been locked out of anything ever. I'm like, this is crazy. Can you believe it? And he did not like the heavy weight of sarcasm, but fucking everybody, man. And it could be during an emergency, or it could be just inconvenient. And there's times that me and my students have reported to me as well, over and over. Sometimes if you are trying to open your locker or a door or a padlock in like your business or your home or your, somewhere where you work, sometimes if you leave your keys like in your car, it's quicker to take out a little tool from your pocket, unpick that lock, and gain access than it is to walk to your car, get the keys, and come back. So it does enrich your life. It makes your life better. And the first time that you have to not rely on a locksmith, you have to call them. You have to wait for them to get there. They charge you out the butthole. There's tons and tons of horror stories about locksmiths being able to use a credit card to open a door, and instead they'll get the drill out. They'll take a longer amount of time. They'll drill through the lock. They'll go, well, now I got to replace your lock with this $100 replacement. They'll charge you an emergency fee. So you're paying $200 plus $300 for a lockout that could be solved with a credit card. So you're also protecting yourself from being poached by locksmiths. Not that they all do that, but some of them do. It also shows you the flip side of security. And again, lockpicking is not a huge concern when you're defending your home or your business, but it's a small concern. so it can show you how to prevent against some of these attacks. And God, there's a terrible grid down or terrible epidemic or pandemic, or the zombies come or World War III happens, which I'm sure we all know is probably pretty reasonable at this point for that to start popping off. It's great to access places in an emergency when your options are limited, when your resources are limited. So I also teach military and law enforcement still, and I get a lot of, I'm sure you guessed, oh, I got a battering ram. Oh, are you in a patrol car, or do you always ride around in the SWAT vehicle? Well, I'm in a patrol car. Do you have a battering ram in your patrol car? Well, no, it's in the SWAT vehicle. Okay, good. Well, now, if you have to get through a door, now you can gain access instead of going, well, let's just wait till a battering ram gets here. So it's quicker access sometimes. And the guys over at coastalfiretraining.com, I did an episode with them too. They're firefighters, and a big problem in the firefighting community is they're not really liable for the damage to your business because they're there to save your life and your property. So when they see signs of a fire or smoke, they make the quickest entry they can, but it's not always the most reasonable entry. So what Coastal Fire Training is doing is they're teaching less destructive entry to firefighters all around the country. So while you might have the legal and or moral right to smash down a door, it would be more appropriate to get out a small pick set or to use a small shim, like a flexible shim, to slip through the door frame to hit the latch or something like that. So it could save you time, it could save you money, it could save your property from being damaged, it could prevent you from getting poached by locksmiths. It makes you more reliant on yourself and more self-sufficient. It gives you a sense of pride. It's very much like a puzzle aspect for those that love to work with their hands, or they love puzzles, or just the uniqueness factor of kind of seeing the underside of security, or the hidden part, the illusion of security. So, man, it scratches a lot of my itches, and I've been trying to bring people value for a long time with it.
It sounds very valuable. I've got a little.
Sorry, go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah, it sounds very valuable. I had a locksmith kit. I don't have that on me anymore. Wish I did, but I've got skeleton keys that I've used to open up padlocks with several times, and I'm like, man, I don't have the key to my padlock, and I just go over there, and it's been extremely handy, and I could definitely, actually picking stuff to be, probably more handy than that. But yeah, that's my my little tiny rant. So
awesome.
I like you said about like the illusion of security, because it really is. Once you learn how a lot of this stuff works, you learn how really easy it is a lot of times to get into places, without even doing damage. Like I've seen videos of people doing the master locks with just a zip tie, cut some notches in the zip tie and jam it in there and get it open. I do, at least in the past, I used to do like automotive security, car alarm, stuff like that. And they've done a good job these days. It's a bit harder to get into cars than it used to be. Not impossible by any means, of course. But I get that kind of time somebody's calling me, hey, my keys, I locked my keys in the house. Can you help me? And I'm like, yes, because I'm not going to violate the non-aggression principle, but trying to get into places, it's a lot of fun, especially if we do it without damaging anything. And you really learn every house has a hole. You can get in pretty much anywhere if you know what you're looking for.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
I have a good friend. You say, locks only keep the honest people out. Like someone who really wants in somewhere, they can figure it out. But getting an idea of, when you learn how that's done, it really helps you learn how to secure your own stuff better, because you know what to look for. You know how to look for weak spots.
Absolutely.
So they are good skills to have all around. So one more thing on lockpicking before we move on. A lot of stuff these days is going to like a lot of like different electronic style locks.
Yeah.
Obviously different ways of dealing with that. How long do you think before like we don't even use like mechanical, if that's even the right word, locks anymore? How long do you think before their thumbprint locks or their codes or whatever before they come more mainstream? And then obviously I'm sure that you'll be able to come out with a way to deal with that too.
I think the answer is 0. I think no matter how digital you get, unless you're everything's going to have a power source. Every digital component is going to have wires of some sort somewhere, and everything's going to be on some type of door or gate or fence or padlock. So everything still today that has a digital component has physical parts that if you can interrupt that physical part or access that physical part, you can still gain entry. Today is really, really easy for to see a door that has a keypad next to it. And even if even if there's no keyway with them, which usually there still is, you just don't realize it or you don't look in the right spot, but you can still often get into these fucking places with a coat hanger. It's amazing. Today, I mean, I'm pretty sure almost every single digitally locked obstacle has physical components. Whether it's easy to access them or not, that's a different story. Whether you can access them or not, that's a different story. But there is no total security. There is no perfect security. It doesn't exist. So somewhere in that layer, there are physical things you can attack. It also it depends on what tools you have and what's a reasonable type of approach. That's all.
Sure. Cool. And yeah, I see some useful things for this. It might be, maybe you don't have time to wait on a locksmith if there's, you have a small child who locked himself in somewhere or something like that, where, you don't really want to kick in the door. If nothing else, you don't want to pay for a new door frame, but, it could be a big traumatic experience too. So, okay, great. So you do a lot of you do a lot of training. You actually host trainings, and you have or you instruct, and you have attended many trainings on all sorts of all sorts of different topics. Firearms. Obviously, you've got your would you call it lockpicking? Would you call it entry gaining class? What would be the word for that?
I call mine tactical lockpicking, although it's kind of like, it's almost a misnomer of the term. The true lock picking would be going into a keyway and manipulating the internals of that keyway to mimic a key so that you can gain entry. But it's a term that's really easily used incorrectly. So putting something else in the keyway and not really picking the pins, but going maybe past them to manipulate something else behind the keyway can still be considered like, oh, I picked the lock. So you've done something to the lock, but it's kind of an umbrella term. So I call my course tactical lockpicking, and I also refer to it as entries and escapes, because there's really two halves of it. One is gaining access into locked obstacles. The other is gaining access out of locked obstacles. So
that's a great point. It's not just
way.
Getting into somewhere. You might need to get out of a situation, That's a really good point. So training is very important, and it's often, I think overlooked. I think especially dudes, we kind of got this macho kind of mindset when it comes to, weapons and fighting and stuff like that, but training is very important. I've had a little bit of a training from somebody who's a professional pistol shooter. And I mean, just going to the range with them a few times, just for fun. But like, I learned so much, that I never would have figured out. It definitely allowed me to sharpen up. That's kind of a broad question, I guess. How do you recommend somebody go about finding a good place to get training in any of those stuff? Like, I've had people at like gun stores who work there, just some dude like, hey, come to my training. But it's like, for all I know, the only credential he has is he was a Marine in Iraq, which may not mean he's going to have a good class, So how would one go about finding good trainings, and what kind of trainings would you recommend to start with?
Yeah, I can see you guys are familiar with at least a little bit of my content. Titles don't mean shit. I don't care what certifications or qualifications someone has. We all know somebody that's not certified in something, but they're really fucking good at it. And we all know somebody that's got a really cool title that they're a complete fucking idiot. So fucking Instagram and YouTube are great places to check out people's training platforms before you go. It's tough to find honest reviews of people's training, because so much of it is hidden kind of behind a paywall, where a lot of training companies will say, can't take video and you can't take photos while you're here. Well, my photo and video policy is take all the fucking video and photo you want. Don't videotape our entire training program and reproduce it and print it and sell it. But if you're here and you're like, oh, that tool is really cool, take a photo. If you want to open a lock with a tool, video that whole fucking thing. That's yours to keep. You paid for it. So there is kind of a paywall with a lot of people's training. And instructors don't want to give you everything before you get to the course. Sometimes I think that dilutes it, where I'm of the different opinion. So if you can find examples of them interacting with students, even in short clips, I think that's great. One of the most important things you can see from that is the way they talk to students. Some people like paying money to get fucking screamed at. I don't. I was in the Coast Guard. If my boss yelled at me in the Coast Guard, he got in trouble. Like, we act like professionals. We don't do that. We don't respond well to that type of incentive. So I treat my students as much as I can like peers practicing with me, instead of, I'm your sensei, you will call me this. So if there's any there's not a lot of content. I'm so fucking busy teaching each course that I don't have the chance to do my own social media plugs while I'm there. But I'm working on that. I have a solution lined up. But if you can see them interact with students, that's great. That's one of the first things I want to look at is he fucking screaming at that person? You know, is he demanding start with A, go to B, then do C? Or are they explaining the finer points with finesse and coaching? I think that one word is probably the thing you want some evidence of. Do they coach you how to do something? Any fucking monkey, you know, from the zoo can get let out of the cage and go down this checklist, A, B, C, D. Okay, do it. And that doesn't really help people. You want to be coached. So any chance you get, try and find videos or content or clips or read reviews if you can. There's lots of forums for gun stuff. There's not lots of forums for other type of stuff. And it's kind of hard to find, you know, an advanced medical forum or a evasive driving forum. But in the gun world, that stuff's all over. So personal recommendations are big. Try and see an instructor interact with his audience or his students. That's big. I try to give people recommendations. I don't do it on every show, but I'm big on training, and I am very honest with people. If I don't believe in a product or a service, I let you know. So find people out there like me, too, who will review other people's work. Podcasts are also a good place. Searchability is still lacking in the podcast world, but hopefully that helps you guys answer that question.
Yeah, for sure. Would you say that all or most instructors who hold courses like this are former police or military? Are there people who are more on the civilian side? And if so, are there any notable differences between those two types of courses?
I can tell you that it's almost a moot point. The military and law enforcement, both, they pay people that are private individuals like me. You know, I am former, but now I'm private. They pay private individuals like me and some other people who have never been in the military or law enforcement. They pay high top dollar for people that are experts in their field that will train, you know, super secret military units or top level law enforcement units. So even the military and law enforcement themselves will hire private companies to teach them. So I think for the individual, it's more important that the product is good than that the title is good. I don't know exactly how else to answer that question other than it's kind of a moot point. I've had training from a lot of people that are military and or law enforcement. I've had some training from people that are uniquely just private. And I haven't seen a huge difference other than I would err on the side of people that are able to run a business as private individuals without that credential. It's not always correct, but that's a good sign. That means that they're producing something without having to lean on a title from their past or their present. So that's usually good. And those people are usually more peer-to-peer. They're aware of their lack of a title, and they're often aware of their lack of experience. So when they approach topics I've seen in the private market, they'll often say things like, what would you consider in a gunfight to be the most important? I think it would be this, instead of a cop or military person that's never been in a gunfight that goes, the most important thing is this. Like, well, I guess he's right? He has the title. I don't know. So I think it's a little bit more honest and a little bit more relatable in the private sector. But of course, there are tons of exceptions.
It's really easy, like in your mind, you think, well, of course, you know, in the military or whatever, they get the best training, you know, but, you know, like you said, a lot of times they're bringing in private people to do it. And then also, I mean, I don't know, there's a lot of stuff the government really isn't that good at. So maybe they're not the best at that too. Mm-hmm. You know, maybe other people could be good at that. So I guess this is definitely more specific, like firearms training. So like right now, ammo is extremely expensive and possibly even impossible to find. I can't imagine that doesn't affect the ability to do trainings. Do you have any thoughts on that? Do they just get put on hold in a time like this?
Now's the time to do dry fire. Now's the time to lean on some airsoft training. And not to toot my own horn, but the right after I went to Gitmo, I taught a private course in Gitmo, although the private was just people off duty that I taught, so it was only military people. The first uniquely public course that I taught was to a guy that had a private group of people, and he was out in the Midwest somewhere, and he said his guys, they met twice a year, every year, and they did mutual assistance, like an aid group, and they were like the local group for those guys, all private, all to support each other, and they were a prepper group. They weren't crazy run for the hills prepper, but they were smart, reasonable humans that wanted to be prepared for emergencies. And they did 2 rifle courses every year. They'd go as a group to 2 different training sessions. And they were like fucking $1,000 plus training sessions to shoot their rifles. And so one of the people that kind of steered and led the group, he contacted me. He's like, listen, I need something new. I need something different. And I've been trying to approach my guys. I'm going to see if we can get them turned on and host you for a course. And the punchline was, he went to his guys and said, there's only so much fucking money you can spend to go to so many repeat rifle courses to get, I mean, what's the return on investment? We're paying over $1,000 again for the 3rd, 4th, 5th time to shoot our rifles. And how much better are we getting? Yes, it's a perishable skill, but you can go to the range any day of the year. We know how to run our guns. It's not a checkbox that we need filled again. He's like, so why don't we do something that completely expands our abilities elsewhere that we don't already have? So that was his pitch to them, and it worked. And I still am in contact with that guy and a couple people from his group. And that was years ago, I think 3 or 4 maybe years ago. So yes, guns are expensive. Ammo is expensive. It's hard to find both. Now is the time to say, maybe I should do that medical course. Maybe I should do that driving course, because we're in our cars, most of us, every fucking day for over an hour, or sometimes 2 or 3. Those are huge tools that you can use to a super big advantage. You might want to take a look at that. Of course, yeah, sure, lockpicking is a good idea. I know a guy. But now's the time to stretch that brain to think, maybe I should take a coding course. Maybe I should get my CB radio cert running. So that could be one of your answers. Otherwise, do your dry firing, watch videos, read books on it, on the shooting. But if it's hard to find ammo, maybe stretch that brain in a different direction.
Brush up on your reloading skills.
Yeah, absolutely. Make some money too.
Yeah, no kidding. I heard that the joke is you don't save any money, but you sure do shoot a lot more. So you mentioned medical, and that's something that I really want to get some training in. Like, even, I mean, I don't know, is it like a simple CPR class, and then, first aid is just supposed to be to get you good enough to get to the hospital. But, a lot of what, like, I hear you talk about is more intensive stuff. Like, you're talking about having a kit on you that has a tourniquet and stuff. Where would someone start to get more, intensive? Because it sounds like you're talking about you're in a hot situation and, somebody took a shot, how do you deal with that? That's obviously a bit more intensive than just a CPR course. What might be some different things to look for when it comes to medical trainings?
Absolutely. So I'm going to be honest here. Most workplaces, most people that are professionals or who have been professionals for most of their adult life, most people have CPR certification in the workplace. The guidelines change all the time. So as long as you're fucking compressing that chest and occasionally pushing some air in, and as long as you're not doing more damage to the person, I would fucking skip going to the CPR class, man. I'd even skip the first aid stuff. If you're worried about this survivalism, if you're worried about being, prepared for large scale emergencies or catastrophic emergencies, even if it's small and regional or small and local, something like a violent car crash, CPR is good, but they're going to bleed out while you do give them CPR. So here's what I would recommend. I would look for, number 1, a TCCC course. And for the people that are unfamiliar, that's TCCC, Tango Charlie Charlie Charlie. I would look into that. There's tons of podcasts and articles and videos on what that is. It is largely just preventing the 3 most preventable causes of death on the battlefield. It also applies to the public too. I would start researching that simply, consume some free content to understand what it is. And then I would look for a course. And to be honest, the only course I'd be looking for right now, if you're interested in that, if you're seriously interested in that skill set, I would find a live tissue medical training course. Not live tissue, but at least live tissue if you can, or any type of organic, even recently dead tissue course would be great. They're probably expensive, but honestly, they're not much more expensive than a high-end rifle course, which a lot of people are happy to drop a dime on.
You explain what you mean by live tissue, because that sounds really creepy on first just hearing that. What's that?
Most companies that will teach you that, they will often teach TCCC, which is preventing, focusing on treating the most treatable causes of death or preventable deaths. So you're not doing brain surgery, but of the cases of all the people that get injured during battle and then make it to the hospital, but they die before they get there, what are the things you can do in between that will have an effect? Well, let's focus on those things. And usually that's the top three, which is airway management. It's your exsanguination or you're bleeding out from a limb or from a cavity. And it is a tension pneumothorax or a sucking chest wound type cavity. So they focus mainly on those things, but a bunch of other things as well. A live tissue course is usually, it's usually, God, I hope it's always done on animals, and that's usually a pig or a goat. Sometimes there's some exceptions to that, but usually it's a pig or a goat, and you'll go to a course. They'll do some PowerPoint training, some classroom training. They'll get you on the same page. You'll do some IVs for each other, like an IV drip. You'll do injections. You'll use the SAM splints and the compound fracture management. All these things that are pretty common in your life-saving courses. And then after you guys are all on the same page, they'll take you out to an appropriate facility. They will treat these animals. Hopefully your company does this. If you attend a private training session, they should be injecting these animals with appropriate medical level drugs so that these animals are not suffering and they're not in pain, but they will receive a heavy dose of that medication. And you will inflict a wound upon the animal with the most reverence possible, not like, haha, I'm going to cut your leg off, but this is training. We're going to do this to this animal. It has been bred for this purpose. It's been purchased. It's been treated. It's had a great life up until now. And now it's going to save a bunch of human lives. So you inflict a wound on the animal with the intent of fixing that wound and keeping that animal alive. So the animal is laying there. It's breathing. It's not moving. It's not running around. It's not squealing. It feels no pain. But your instructor will take a hatchet or something and they'll chop one of the limbs off and they'll go grab your tourniquet. You put the tourniquet on and you see the blood squirting out. You put the tourniquet on, you're like, wow, that's a tiny ass limb. This isn't going to work. And you put it on, you apply it correctly and you go, oh shit, it worked. And then they'll, do some other things with the airway management. So they'll do crushed mutilated mouths or put an obstruction in the mouth and make you go through the neck to do some type of trach or crike procedure where you're putting the tube in the throat so that the animal can breathe, and then you get it breathing again. You'll see the lungs kind of malfunction. You get those lungs moving again. I got to tell you, man, I did that course maybe a decade ago, and still today, if something terrible happened and there was no medicine on the way, there were no medical people on the way, if it was one of those treatable causes of death, I feel so much more confident than, oh my God, what do I do? Even though I'm pretty rusty, even though I might have to makeshift some things, I still feel so much more relaxed going, okay, let's take stock. What do I have with me? What can I use? And how am I going to fix that? Instead of, oh my God, So that's a short walkthrough of what you can expect in a live tissue school. There are some courses. I know Ed's Manifesto does organic medium, where for self-defense, he takes things like knives and hatchets and whatnot, and they will inflict damaging wounds, but on a pig that's already dead. So a lot of people think, oh, I'll take my knife out and I'll stab them. And it's funny because when the pig's right there in front of you, hanging from the ceiling, it's already dead. It's a cadaver, basically, a cadaver pig. And you take your knife out. A lot of people, they regrip and they breathe and they get ready and they get their footwork. And I'm thinking, you're not going to do that in a fight. You're going, let's go. So just go. So it's funny, you see all this hesitation and all this waiting, but that's a good thing about these tissue courses, whether it's live or dead tissue. The good thing is you get that shit out of the way so that when a loved one is laying on the floor in front of you and they have this terrible injury, or whether a bad guy is facing you off and he's got a weapon or a bigger weapon and it's time for you to use that weapon that you got, it takes that first initial stress out of there so you can focus on doing the right job. And you can enter that situation saying, I've been here before. I've done this before. I already have a leg up on the competition.
Wow, man, that's intense. I definitely see the value. Obviously, with something like that you want to have some experience in beforehand. So like I said, you get that initial shock out of the way, and a lot of stuff you read about it a million times, but until you do it, you're not really that confident. But man, I did not realize that was a thing. And I kill animals for a living, I have a farm. So I've done all that, but that'd be a different situation. That'd be a little tough, man. I'm not going to lie, but I can definitely see the value in it for sure. So not talking trash, just saying. I'm sure PETA hates it.
Oh yeah. We had to change our training location because of PETA when I went in the military. We were scheduled to go to
buy that.
one city in one state, and they called us last minute. They're like, "Hey, you're going to a different facility. Surprise!" Where PETA wasn't present and protesting.
Right.
But the good news is I can assure people, I'm sure not every company is fantastic, but the company I went to was called T1G, Tier 1 Group. They were very respectful. They were very humble. They were very reverent. They did the right thing for the animals. They did the right thing for us. There were no jokes. There were no selfies with, with a dead goat laying in front of you. So it was very respectful. And the only purpose was we're going to save human lives. And, as much as we can, we're going to show these animals respect. So that was at least one nice silver lining there.
All right. You're familiar with freedom cells, right?
Yeah, I understand the concept. Yeah.
So I've been getting into those. We had John Bush on, I don't know, gosh, it was like a month or two ago now. And, he got all that set up years back. And I really think it's a cool concept. And I've made some friends out here locally. Haven't actually done a meetup or anything yet. But so let's say you get something like a freedom cell going. Like, do you, group training is probably a good idea in a situation like that.
Yeah, of course.
What do you think? And do you think that it's the kind of thing that everybody should be trained in the same thing, or maybe depending on your particular strengths and weaknesses?
Yeah.
Different trainings for different kinds of stuff. Like whoever has the best constitution should maybe do the live tissue training, et cetera.
That's good. I did a whole podcast on it, I think like 2 weeks ago or so. It was standardization versus specialization, I think was the title, something like that. And I answered that question. Every group is different. So I've noticed a lot. It's kind of a reemerging pattern. People in groups, when they're given a task, one of the first things that people, I think, naturally want to do, or maybe it's not a natural act. Maybe it's something they've been designed to do through our $1 trillion a year propaganda machine from the state. But one of the first things that happens is students immediately start wanting to control the other students in their group to achieve the mission. It's not, hey, how do we work together? It's, you do this and you do that. No, wait, you do this. So a lot of that happens, a lot of finger pointing instead of concentrating on the outcome. So every group is different. I don't want to tell you what training to take, and you shouldn't be telling other people what training to take. In the military, I was a huge dissenter when it came to what you call a captive audience or a captive student base. Training sucks when you're being dragged by your hair and forced at gunpoint to attend it. So with that in mind, if you are part of a freedom cell, it should probably be because you want to be part of a freedom cell. If your cell is doing training, you should pick training that a lot of people want to go to. And if you don't want to go to it, you shouldn't be forced to. And if there's training that you do want to go to, you should be free to do that. So I am a huge supporter of letting people do what works for them, and in return, that will work for the group. So that's my short answer for the guidance of how do we do the selecting and directing. The next part would be find out what your group needs. So if your group is like a group of 10 dudes and you're all on the same fucking SWAT team in the same city or county, you probably shouldn't be spending $3,000 twice a year on a rifle course. You're probably good there. You're probably also pretty good at driving. So find out where your group is already at, and you're going to want to do probably two things. You're going to want to worry about worst case scenario issues or big, expensive, heavy, serious issues, and you're going to want to worry about the small, moderate, but likely issues. And this was always a problem with gunfighting training in law enforcement. So not a lot of people taught you how to write a good report, but a lot of people tried to teach you how to be in a gunfight, when in reality, you need to know how to write a good report because you're going to be writing them every fucking day, and they're really important. They're really important for people's human rights. And no one really tells you, dude, we got to shape this up. We got to do better. This part's important. That part's important. Take your time. Let's double check. That shit don't happen. But everyone's excited to go, let's go to another gun course. So I would say, what does our group want to solve? What big problem? What big emergency? What huge catastrophic thing, right? The Russians invading. Okay, great. Let's spend some time working on preventing a Russian invasion of armed troops. What's one of the things we're going to have to deal with? Me and Texas Joe just on Insurgency Knitting Circle just did a podcast on this. His neighbor in his mutual support cell, one of his neighbors had lightning strike 3 of his huge cows all in one blast. Boom, cows went down. So they immediately had to process like several hundred pounds worth of meat in one afternoon.
Oh, man.
So his whole community got together and everyone went out there and everyone started either processing or assisting. And I'm going to do a whole show next because I had a listener ask me about support personnel for Freedom Cells. So I'm going to do a whole show on just support personnel because they're so insanely important. So yes, while everyone on your team might want to handle firearms well, maybe you have one dude that really handles long range stuff well. He just loves it. Great. Go to the fucking sniper course. Have fun. We're not all going to sniper school. You want to go? Go. That's great. We'll use that resource when we need it. So with the cow situation and from Texas was the kids and like the wives and like some of the maybe less blood loving men were like, okay, well, we're not going to process those cows, but you guys are going through knives pretty quick. I have a sharpener at my house. I'm really fucking good at sharpening knives. When your knife gets dull, set it right here on this folding picnic table that I brought, and I'll make it sharp again, and I'll set it in that pile, ready to go. That, he said, that was one of the biggest helps during the entire thing was, hey, my knife's not working great. That's a danger to you. That's a danger to others. That ruins your product on the other end. So they went, great, knife's not working. That side of the table. Oh, let me pick up a new one. So yeah, support is really important. What was the question? I'm sorry, I'm on my second glass of whiskey.
No, you're good. We're just saying, yeah, like in like a freedom cell, like you know how maybe some tips on how to decide, you know, yeah, who does what. I mean, division of labor basically is, you know, what you're describing.
My answer is let them.
Something to. Yeah, cool, excellent. I've been doing a lot of talking here, Brandon. You got anything?
This is a great guest to have on. I've really enjoyed it. I really enjoy survival stuff. And
awesome.
I've got some guns and some lockpick stuff, but there's so many categories that I can improve on. It's kind of hard to figure out like what I would need to do next. Do you have any ideas on how to find, I don't know what I would need to improve on next. Is there a way of going about trying to figure out what the next step is to figure out, what you need? Are there good resources you could find to, okay, I know some of this, like maybe somebody's got like a good list or.
Yeah, I actually do have one of those lists. I did I think 2 or 3 podcasts on it. I know swiftsilentdeadly.com has a lot of really good content there. And he was joining me on this episode. I think it was him and me and Matt from Status Quo Pod. It wasn't my greatest work episode. I had a terrible fucking migraine during the episode, so I didn't talk much, but the content I think is still good. So the title in the series is called A Bachelor's in Tactical Science. So that is the article and the podcast title on my show over at Uncensored Tactical. And that talks about, hey, yes, rifle training is good. If you're on a limited budget and you're on a limited time frame, you can go to the range once a month and not blow your whole wad on it, so to speak. So we talked about spending that 1 week a year or 2 3-day weekends a year on your preparedness, where would be the best fit for that? And we all came up with medical probably being one of the first things that you want to get, a heightened sense of awareness on, or heightened sense of ability on. So we did talk about that for over an hour on that episode, and we kind of laid out some guidelines and some things that we would recommend to people, especially for these freedom cells or for a survival group. Driving is another.
Be operating on some animals soon, I guess, right?
What's that?
I guess I'm going to be operating on some animals soon.
Saying basically he's going to be operating on live animals as the next step.
Okay.
Sounds like
as long as you're doing it the right way. Yeah, it's a huge benefit.
Go on with the medical.
Sure, driving is going to be real important. You probably want to hammer that out early. Medical, you're going to want to hammer that out early, and you also want to find out. Those are 2 good starting places. You also might want to do some thoughts on what are things that I can do occasionally throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month or the year, and what are the things that I have to go to a 2 or 3 or 4 day block of training out of town, out of state. So figuring out those 2 different things is going to be unique to you. I can't answer that. Like I have a lot of friends, my buddy Terry, who I teach my course with over on CDI Tactical. He's a digital madman. He wakes up and starts playing with machines about, reading all the signals in the ether and copying them and pasting them. And that's not my game. So I have 2 options for that. I can slowly start to get into that digital field. Once a week, I'll read an article on it and I'll bookmark the article and I'll take notes, whatever. Or I can choose to spend a 3 or 4 day weekend at a digital camp going, I know nothing, teach me everything. and you can attack that two ways. Some things you can't attack both ways, so figure out which one it fits in for you. Like Terry probably can read an article and go, yep, I got it. Whereas me, if I'm still getting into it and I see a project I really like, I might have to pay for that 2 or 3 or 4 day course, just depending on where you're coming from. So medical, driving, gunfighting, of course, entry skills. Not everyone has to attend a tactical lockpicking course. And some people can get enough out of my free content on the podcast or the articles. My YouTube channel is not very good. I got away from that. It just takes so much time to produce video. But maybe send someone to breacher school and send someone else to lockpicking school in your group and figure out which one you want more. And again, I'm not a fan of a captive audience. So do what you like and do what works for you, and hopefully get that return on investment, and don't do something that's a waste.
Driving is something that like a driving course is something that had not even begun to cross my mind.
Yeah,
but it sounds like a lot of fun.
And you can't do that an hour a day on your own time. You have to go to a facility to do that. You can't just do fucking donuts wherever you feel like it.
Yeah, because something like, practicing drawing your weapon, which is probably something you should do often, if not, daily or weekly, but yeah, you can do that in, at your house, so yeah, something like driving, and yeah, you usually, you might be able to go over to your friend's house in his backyard and pop off a few rounds, but yeah, like you said, you're not really setting up a course and, doing all this or that, but yeah, I never would have even considered that, man. I'm glad you mentioned that. So
here's one you can do every day. Not a lot of people think about it. You can do it every day, and it is super low cost, and in most cases free if you dedicate the time to it. Pick your region that you like and find out what some of the other common secondary and tertiary languages are, and just start learning another language, man. If you live in a population that has you live in an area with a huge Russian population, start learning some fucking Ruski. If you live in Miami, Florida, start fucking working on that Spanish, because if a huge fucking event happens and there's some high stress situations and some of the people you're dealing with only speak Spanish, that would be a huge benefit to you or your team to know that secondary language.
I learned a lot of Spanish in living in Tampa, and yeah, just even if you're not fluent in it, if you know enough, you can at least communicate. You know a few words, the Latin-based words, you can figure it out. But yeah, that's definitely a good point. If you can't communicate with people, that's a big problem. So okay, I got a couple more things here. So let's talk just real quickly about like armor, plate carriers and stuff. Yay or nay? When do you make that investment? That's not something you're going to be doing just patrolling your neighborhood and neighborhood watch. Like that seems like you're really, expecting some, you're expecting a big situation or something. What are some thoughts there? Is that something people should really consider investing in, or is that kind of once you already have everything else set, maybe think about that, or what's up
with armor?
Yeah, like when, or do you suggest just regular people, get a set of it? It's not cheap. Is that something you think people should get like right away, or is that maybe a later on kind of thing, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I wouldn't buy armor if I don't yet own a gun. That's for sure.
That's probably good. Yeah.
I also wouldn't buy armor if I haven't attended some high level weapons training. So just having a gun, I wouldn't go buy armor. And to be clear, boot camp firing line doesn't count as high-end training. Neither does your annual law enforcement pistol qualification. So I would go to a course, whether it's a good course, a bad course, or in the middle. I would attend some higher level weapons training before I even think about buying armor. I do think if you have the money for it and your other training is pretty shored up, it is completely reasonable and is a completely smart purchase to invest your time and money and energy into getting a solid, good fitting plate carrier. And not everyone wears them correctly or the right fit or size even. But it's completely reasonable as a normal, rational, prepared adult that if your fucking front door goes boom, 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 and someone's trying to kick it in, if you have that extra 7 or 8 seconds, slip that little carrier over your neck and strap that little Velcro pad around the front, and then grab your rifle and then go. Yes, completely reasonable. But everyone gets so excited about the zombies coming that they go, well, I'm going to buy this carrier and this Kevlar helmet and these nods so that I can wear it when crazy stuff happens. Okay, well, what would that level have to be? Because just recently, I think a month ago, Tampa, where I live, was on fucking fire with riots up and down the street. Shopping malls were getting broken into. Gas stations were getting looted and lit on fucking fire, likely to fucking explode.
That was bad.
Would I have strapped on my plate carrier? Well, if I was driving into that and I saw buildings burning, yes, I would park my fucking car immediately. I'd go to my trunk, I'd throw on my carrier, and I would make a U-turn and drive the other way. But then when I got home, yeah, I would take that thing off, throw it back and bring it inside with me, put it in the trunk, whatever. So when would you wear that? What, there's rioting in the streets. Okay, what if it's 10 streets away? Are you going to put it on at home while you're on your couch? Honestly, no, you're probably not. If it's 2 streets away, are you gonna? Well, how are you gonna know? Well, maybe I'll wear it. So understanding what you would use it for realistically, like put yourself in that situation. I told myself that when this crazy shit was going on, I told myself I will not drive through a checkpoint just to get to work every day. I have to cross a bridge to get to work. And then the checkpoints came and I heard about them on the radio, and the people that worked the day shift at my job were going through checkpoints, and the cops were stopping them and going, "Where are you headed? Prove it. Let me see." And I went to the night shift where I work, and the cops and the checkpoints were already gone, and people were telling me about it. And I was like, that was my line in the sand. I was like, I will not fucking do that. I'll quit. I'll pack my shit up and I'll drive, to one of my holdout locations, and I'll beg one of my friends to help me find a new job and get on my feet for a month. And then I realized, fuck, if I leave work tonight and there's a checkpoint, I'm going to have to drive through it. And fuck, that's going to be really fucking hard to uproot my life. So maybe I'll just put up with the checkpoint on the way back in because I put up with it on the way out. So you can put yourself in these mental scenarios and you can think you're going to do something, but give yourself that extra minute where you really place yourself in that environment. That's a lot of cost. That's a lot of risk. If someone did this, I'd kill them. Yeah, that's really easy to say. So spend that extra few minutes and go, what would happen after? After you kill them, is someone else going to shoot you? After you kill them, are you going to get dragged through court? After you kill them, are you going to be the new media sensation where you have to pick up and move and go under a fucking fake name? Oh, shit. Yeah, good point. So these mental scenarios they're fun to pretend. They're great. But give it that extra level of seriousness where you go, okay, and then what does that mean? If there was a roadblock, I'd ram through it. Okay, and then what? What would happen next? Because a lot of people don't do that next part of it. So even for me, my line in the sand moved. And I thought, shit. I mean, I never had to drive through a checkpoint. I missed it just by sheer luck and time. But I told myself, well, fuck, I thought this was my line in the sand, but it's not. I fucking did. I would have put up with it, and I would have stayed. I would have tried to go to my day job and make that money and pay my bills. Fuck. So yeah, I don't know what started us there, but hopefully I gave you some info and some value.
Armor. Was that checkpoint? Was that on like public roads out there? Yep. Or was that like to get into like your job?
No,
they were doing that over there. Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness.
And they did it from state to state too. I think between Florida and Georgia and between Florida and Alabama, I think both had I hate saying the word, but fucking COVID checkpoints.
Yeah, I remember that, but I didn't know over over there where you're at, they were doing that. And I've been just avoiding the cities like crazy since all this COVID stuff started because I wish I could deal with any of that. And it's just what I've noticed is the closer you get to the city, the more people are not only wearing masks, but the more they will confront you for not wearing a mask, things like that. People just, out here where I'm at, nobody cares. So it's not that big a deal, but yeah, the closer you get to the city, man, it's just getting crazy. I did not know they were doing that over there though, man. That's insane. Okay. So, here we go. I'm going to stir some shit here because I've heard this before. Are women easier to train than men when it comes to firearms and stuff?
I could not fucking care less what's hanging or not hanging between someone's legs. I've had great female students with firearms. Mm-hmm. I've had great female students with lockpicking. And I've had great male students with both of those. I can't say I've had terrible female students in either of those, but I can say I've had terrible male students on occasion. So the problem is,
I guess I heard that like men don't like to take instruction as well on stuff like that. Maybe
I have never seen that to be an issue. I think that's
okay. And I guess it might not, if somebody's paying for training, God, I'd hope they're willing to accept. So that might be a different thing too. So, okay, cool.
Maybe that's the captive audience of a dude going, I don't want to fucking be here. You're stupid. Maybe I don't know. Maybe that's it.
Yeah, that could have something to do with it. I found a book at a used bookstore about like guerrilla warfare and stuff like that, which it was an awesome book. I got it, but it's a book that I would never order off the internet. And so like I've got like a lot of stuff like I'd like to be better, like learn like tactical stuff, like, like the first time I went and played paintball, I got totally like flanked, and like didn't even know that was a thing. And looking back, it was like textbook, kind of thing. It's like, where can I go? Or do you have any books you can recommend for somebody who might want to learn stuff, like how to, maybe a group of 3 or 4 people, how would we do something, move through a building or whatever? Is this something that you have to get in-person training, or are there maybe books that can at least give you kind of ideas on how stuff like that plays out, a little bit of strategy, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know if people know this, but a lot of times military vets will do a lot of exaggeration in their autobiographies that they write.
Mm-hmm.
Books are great.
I can believe that.
They are a really good, great start, and they'll get you in the right mindset of. I used to read the Dick Marchenko, if I'm saying that right. His book series starts with Rogue Warrior and then Red Cell and Green Team and all that. They're good books, and they put you in that mindset of we have to do things different. We're not normal. We're better than that. We're more creative than that. It gives you some things to think about. It also shows the power of a small unit versus a huge hulking bureaucracy. So I really like that. Yeah, books will get you started. Let's think about this. Let's think about the different levels of entry here. If you want to be, let's say it's close quarters combat or like SWAT team stuff, we're talking about flanking. Similarly related would be room clearing. You can read a book on room clearing, sure. And that would probably get you started. That's great. But I would not give a book to everybody in my group and go, oh no, there's a hostage situation across the street. Well, we all read the book. Let's go. We're in. So yeah, I can get you started. It's a great reference. It's good for, getting your brain moving and stretching and getting you put into that mindset and that environment. You can listen to podcasts. You can watch YouTube videos. Also great. You could take a lot of people are doing this now. You can do your live online digital Zoom call courses where you get interaction with a coach. However, you can also stand there in the room with your instructor, and he can show you what it feels like to be flanked. He can make you do an effective flank. He can show you what not to do. He can get you and your whole team experience A. B, he can get you all on the same page. C, he can get you that stress inoculation in person that you can't get from a book or a podcast or even from online courses. So you have levels to entry. And depending on your budget and your time and what you already know, again, this is probably really common already on this episode, but you get to choose how you're going to make the most of that.
Excellent. That's about all I got. And it looks like we're coming up on time too. Did you have anything else, Brandon?
No, I thought it was great. I really appreciate you coming on, Pat.
Awesome. I had a lot of fun.
This is excellent, man. Go ahead and plug whatever you got. I don't even think we mentioned at the beginning. I know you mentioned at one point in the middle. I don't think we mentioned that, your podcast name or anything like that. So go ahead and go over everything that everywhere anybody can find you and whatever you want, man.
Sure. The easiest home base is uncensoredtactical.com. It's pretty easy. I'm on Instagram almost daily. You can find me there. Same name, Uncensored Tactical. I'm on Twitter, but most of my stuff on Twitter is not tactics related. Most of my Twitter talk is bashing people that are anti-liberty. So that's most of my liberty talk. My book is out. It's called Tactical Lockpicking. Really genius creative title. I know. Thank you. It took me a long time. No, the book's out. It's available in print and in digital formats. You can go to Amazon to find both of those. If you don't want to give Amazon your money, you can go to lulu.com, Lulu, and just search for Lockpicking books, and you'll find my book. That's if you want to give money to a smaller company instead of Amazon. I am going to open up I did a pilot course for online training. I'm going to do my second roll of that. It's probably rolling out in January or February of this year. So if you have any interest in the online training, which is much more affordable and it's a more long-term course and it's more at your own pace, that'll keep your eyes open for that. Subscribe to my Instagram and check my website. And if you guys are just fucking dying to do in-person training with me for the lockpicking, I just got done teaching earlier this week, and I have a pretty busy schedule with that course next year. I'm going to do three courses out of state and probably a couple locally too. But if you have enough people signed up, I'm going to get you all confirmed. I will get you guys a quote for training. In-person training is it's the cat's ass, man. It doesn't get any better. It's tons of fun. It is a really enjoyable classroom environment. It is not boring and sterile and, professional or political. We just show up. We start picking locks at minute number 1. We don't do the bullshit we don't even go around the room and say, hi, my name is this, and I'm from, I don't care. we'll get to know each other throughout the course. Let's just fucking start. So it's a ton of fun. It's a good environment. You learn so much shit. You get, as soon as you sit down in your seat, you make almost your entire tuition rate back in the value that you get in your hands with tools and packets and info and resources. So sorry I went long on that, but it's a ton, man, it's a ton of value. So I love doing it. It's my passion. You couldn't stop me if you tried. I really enjoy it. So thank you guys just a ton for having me here. I love talking and hopefully helping people out with perspective and insight. And I'm thrilled. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure, man. Thank you so much for coming on. And if you ever got anything else you want to talk about, you just shout us a holler, man.
Yeah, you can come on anytime you'd like. So
100%. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Take us out of here, Brandon.
Yep. I'll end it with a quote here. By failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. Benjamin Franklin. Agorist, Nexus out.